Providence, Rhode Island just shattered a record that has stood for 48 years. 37.9 inches of snow. The blizzard of 1978 held the state's all-time single-storm record at 28.6 inches. That number survived every nor'easter, every bomb cyclone, every February ambush for nearly half a century. It did not survive Monday. The blizzard of 2026, as forecasters are now calling it, obliterated it by more than 9 inches. And Providence was not even the hardest-hit city in the region. On Long Island, Islip recorded 29.1 inches, the greatest single snowstorm in its recorded history. Central Islip reported 31 inches. Babylon logged 29.5. In New Jersey, Newark measured 27 inches, the second largest snowfall the city has ever seen. In Central Park, the official total reached 19.7 inches, making this the 9th largest snowstorm in New York City history, a record book that stretches back to 1869. At least 2 people are dead. Nearly 700,000 customers have lost power across 8 states. More than 10,000 flights have been cancelled. Travel bans were imposed across the entire states of New Jersey and Rhode Island, and here is the detail that changes everything. This storm hit the same corridor, the same cities, and the same vulnerable populations that were buried just 26 days ago by Winter Storm Fern, a storm that killed 171 people across the United States and became the deadliest winter storm in the country in more than a generation. Here is how it happened. As early as February 16th, the Weather Prediction Center flagged the potential for a coastal storm to develop off the northeastern United States somewhere between February 20th and the 23rd. The key ingredient was a shortwave trough originating over the Pacific Ocean. At that point, the forecast models were fighting. Some pushed the storm safely out to sea. Others drove it directly into the worst possible track. By February 19th, the trough made landfall on the west coast in California. The following day, it crossed the Rocky Mountains, dropping light snow across the high plains. Then, late on February 21st, the disturbance began to consolidate off the southeastern coast. A new surface low formed off the Carolinas early on February 22nd, and it began to move north. That is when the atmosphere made its decision. There is a point in the Atlantic Ocean, roughly 80 to 100 miles southeast of Nantucket, that meteorologists call the 40 degrees north, 70 degrees west benchmark. When a nor'easter center tracks directly over that point, the Interstate 95 corridor gets buried. By Friday morning, the 2 most trusted global forecast models, the GFS and the European model, snapped into agreement. Both placed the storm directly on the benchmark. The National Weather Service began upgrading watches to warnings. By Saturday, blizzard warnings covered all of New Jersey, all of Connecticut, all of Delaware, eastern Maryland, New York City, Long Island, and southern New England. It was the first blizzard warning issued for New York City since March 2017. The first for all 21 New Jersey counties since January 1996. The first for Boston and all of Rhode Island since January 2022. And this is where it turned from dangerous to historic. This was not just a nor'easter, it was a bomb cyclone. That term describes a storm whose central pressure drops at least 24 millibars in 24 hours, a process called bombogenesis. This storm did not just meet that threshold, it destroyed it. The central pressure plummeted 40 millibars in 24 hours. It reached the bomb cyclone benchmark in just 18 hours. The minimum central pressure bottomed out at 966 millibars. That kind of pressure drop is rare even in powerful hurricanes. The Fox Forecast Center confirmed the storm developed an eye-like feature visible on satellite imagery, a swirling structure more commonly associated with Category 3 hurricanes, than with winter storms. The Gauss East satellite, orbiting 22,300 miles above the Earth, captured the classic comma shape of the cyclone stretching from the mid-Atlantic all the way into Maine. Now absorb what that pressure gradient did on the ground. Hurricane-force wind gusts slammed the coastline. Wellfleet, Massachusetts, recorded 77 miles per hour. Stony Brook, New York, hit 74. Kingston, Rhode Island, and Norwell, Massachusetts, each clocked 73. Bellefonte, Delaware, reached 72. Keyport, New Jersey, recorded 67. Barnegat Inlet, 66. Atlantic City, 60. These are not gusts you brace against. These are gusts that snap utility poles, rip branches from frozen trees, and send debris airborne through walls of white. Multiple automated weather observation stations across Massachusetts were knocked offline entirely. The instruments designed to measure the storm were destroyed by the storm. And the snow. Unlike a typical powder event, this snow was heavy and wet. Forecaster Cody Snell with the NWS Weather Prediction Center warned Sunday that the snowfall would weigh down trees and power lines. He was right. Snow rates reached 2 to 3 inches per hour across Long Island, New Jersey, and southern New England. In Providence, 13.9 inches fell in a single 6-hour window Monday morning. The Storm Prediction Center highlighted the possibility of thundersnow across the Northeast, and it delivered. In Plymouth, Massachusetts, the epicenter of the blizzard's fury, Weather Channel veteran Jim Cantor reported live thundersnow, lightning cracking and booming directly overhead in the middle of whiteout conditions. The Boston Globe announced it could not print its physical newspaper. The snow was so heavy that staff could not reach the printing press in Taunton, which sits near the Rhode Island border, near the very epicenter of the storm. The Globe published only a digital edition. Here is the human toll so far. Near Sunderland, Maryland, on Sunday afternoon, as the storm was just beginning to slam the region, a tree fell onto a car. 2 people inside were killed. A third was trapped and transported to the hospital in critical condition. The Calvert County Sheriff's Office confirmed the deaths Monday. Maryland State Police received more than 1,190 calls for service during the storm and responded to 343 crashes. Nearly 30% of those calls came from the Eastern Shore alone. In Delaware, more than 100 roads were blocked by debris. Governor Matt Meyer imposed a Level 3 driving ban in Sussex and Kent counties, prohibiting all non-essential travel. In Newcastle County, only emergency personnel were permitted on the roads. But the power outages are the crisis within the crisis. At the storm's peak, more than 700,000 customers across the Northeast lost electricity. New Jersey was the epicenter. Over 115,000 customers went dark. In Ocean County alone, more than 13% of the population lost power as 70-mile-per-hour gusts ripped through the Jersey Shore. Delaware saw nearly 72,000 outages. The Delaware Electric Coop reported that nearly 42% of its entire customer base was without electricity. In Massachusetts, the number surged past 282,000. Cape Cod's entire Outer Cape lost 100% of customers at one point. The MEMA outage tracking website crashed under the volume of people trying to check the status of their power. Barnstable and Falmouth each reported more than 20,000 customers in the dark. Plymouth County hit 26,500 without service. In New York, the Rockaways were hit hardest. Several warming centers were opened at Far Rockaway High School, Beach Channel High School, and PS 43 for residents who lost heat. Con Edison spokesperson Elizabeth Ferrari said the main causes of the outages in New York City were the winds and road salt mixing with melting snow, which created short circuits in underground infrastructure. Utility officials in Connecticut warned that full power restoration could take 4 to 6 days. The winds were too strong to safely raise bucket trucks, meaning in many areas repairs could not even begin until the storm fully cleared. Rhode Island Energy President Gregory Cornett said at a Monday press briefing that restoring power across the state would be a multi-day process. In Gothamist's reporting, some New York and New Jersey residents were told they might not see power restored for hours or even days. Con Edison said Bronx customers might wait until Tuesday morning. Brooklyn and Queens could take until Tuesday afternoon, and nobody had an estimate for the nearly 4,000 people still without power in the Rockaways. Now, zoom out. New York City imposed a mandatory travel ban beginning at 9 p.m. Sunday that held until noon Monday. All streets, highways, bridges, and tunnels were closed to non-emergency traffic. Vehicles found in violation faced fines and immediate towing. Mayor Zohran Mamdani cancelled school for Monday. He deployed 22 warming buses citywide and opened warming centers at 11 city-run hospitals and 13 schools. The Department of Sanitation activated over 2,600 workers on 12-hour rotating shifts, with 2,300 snowplows and 700 salt spreaders running simultaneously. An additional 1,000 emergency snow laborers were deployed to clear bus stops, crosswalks, and fire hydrants. Governor Kathy Hochul declared a state of emergency for 22 counties and activated over 100 members of the National Guard. She compared the whiteout conditions to the kind of lake-effect blizzards she experienced growing up in Buffalo. New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill declared a state of emergency and imposed a statewide travel ban. NJ Transit suspended all service, every bus, every rail line, every light rail, every access link route. Even after the ban was lifted Monday afternoon, Sherrill urged residents to avoid all non-essential travel. 5,000 utility workers were on the ground in New Jersey alone. In Massachusetts, Governor Maura Healey declared a state of emergency, deployed 200 National Guard members, and issued a targeted travel ban for Bristol, Plymouth, and Barnstable counties. Speed limits on the Mass Pike were cut to 40 miles per hour. Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee imposed a total statewide travel ban that prohibited all motor vehicle travel on all roads. State police cited 24 vehicles for violating the ban. Several disabled tractor-trailers blocked highways, halting snowplow operations. In Providence, motorists who attempted to drive were abandoning their cars when they got stuck, further clogging the streets. In Pennsylvania, Governor Josh Shapiro issued a disaster emergency declaration. PennDOT had 60,000 tons of salt staged across 5 counties and over 170 trucks pre-treating roadways. In Philadelphia, Mayor Sherelle Parker declared a snow emergency and activated Code Blue from February 22nd through the 25th, citing below-freezing temperatures and heavy snowfall. Warming centers were opened for the homeless. In Connecticut, Governor Ned Lamont declared a state of emergency and activated the Emergency Operations Center. More than 600 snowplows were deployed. Crews faced the storm with already depleted budgets from multiple rounds of snow throughout the winter. And that is the detail that no one is talking about. Governors in 8 states declared emergencies. More than 40 million people sat under blizzard warnings, stretching more than 600 miles from Maryland to Maine. The aviation system recorded more than 18,000 total flight disruptions through Tuesday. Nearly 1,900 flights on Tuesday alone were pre-cancelled as airlines struggled to reposition aircraft and crews. LaGuardia, JFK, Newark, and Boston saw cancellation rates above 90%. American Airlines said it expected to restart flights at New York area airports and Boston late Tuesday morning. The 958 flights were cancelled at Boston Logan alone by Monday morning. Rhode Island's T.F. Green Airport suspended all operations. Broadway went dark. The Steamship Authority cancelled all ferry service to Martha's Vineyard, cutting the island's supply chain. Fuel deliveries stopped. Grocery stores closed. On the Vineyard, thousands of residents were without power, with wind gusts reaching 71 miles per hour and snow drifts rivaling those of the blizzard of 1978. But here is the problem no one is talking about. This region has not had a month to recover. It has had 26 days. Winter Storm Fern struck the same corridor from January 22nd through the 27th. It was not a regional inconvenience, it was a catastrophe. 171 confirmed deaths across the United States, the deadliest winter storm in more than a generation. Over 10,000 flights cancelled. New Jersey Transit suspended all service. The National Guard was activated in 12 states. In Mississippi alone, 29 people died. In New York City, 7 people were found dead outside in the extreme cold during that storm. The city's Office of Chief Medical Examiner was still investigating the causes of death. Mayor Mamdani said at a briefing that more than 4,500 New Yorkers currently live on the streets. 170 unsheltered individuals were placed into Department of Homeless Services sites over that January weekend. And now, before the city has fully exhaled, before the last piles of dirty snow from Fern had even finished melting, the same streets, the same shelters, and the same outreach teams are being tested again by a storm that multiple forecasters have said is worse. At Monday's press conference, Mamdani said that as of that afternoon, his office was not aware of any blizzard-related deaths on New York City streets or in public areas. No one was forcibly removed from the cold, officials said, but the cold behind this storm has not yet arrived. NWS meteorologist James Tomasini told Gothamist that this storm was remarkable. He noted the past couple of years have been much quieter and warmer with less snow, making this winter's rebound all the more striking. Governor Hochul, for her part, warned that more power outages were likely even as the snow continued to fall. And here is where the scale becomes clear. This is the second major winter disaster to slam the Northeast in under a month. The January storm forced 12 federal emergency declarations. FEMA declared major disasters for Tennessee and Mississippi. Louisiana received a disaster declaration on February 18th. The federal government approved fire management assistance grants for wildfires that broke out across Oklahoma and Texas just days before this blizzard formed. And now, portions of FEMA's own website carry a notice that due to the lapse in federal funding, portions of the site may not be updated and some non-disaster assistance transactions may not be processed until after appropriations are enacted. The agency responsible for coordinating disaster relief is operating under a government funding lapse, while 2 historic disasters overlap on the same calendar month. And still, the storm is not finished. As of Monday evening, snow was still falling across eastern Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Maine. The National Weather Service said most of the remaining accumulation would fall in those areas. The blizzard warning for Rhode Island extended through 7 a.m. Tuesday. Governor McKee said the statewide travel ban would remain in effect and be reassessed Tuesday morning. On Cape Cod and the South Shore, power restoration had barely begun. Wind gusts were still too strong for bucket trucks. Eversource reported downed trees, broken poles, and blocked roads across southeastern Massachusetts. In Beacon Falls, Connecticut, a road remained closed between Feldspar Avenue and Munson Road due to downed trees and power lines, with no estimated time for reopening. And behind all of it, the question that hangs over every warming center, every darkened house, every buried fire hydrant. What happens when the snow stops and the cold sets in? What happens to the 4,500 people living on the streets of New York City when the plows finish and the temperatures drop below freezing behind the storm? What happens when the same utility crews who were still restoring power from the January storm are now facing a second round of 700,000 outages with depleted budgets, exhausted workers, and roads they cannot reach? What happens when two historic storms land on the same corridor in the same month and the federal agency that coordinates the response are now facing a second round of 700,000 outages with depleted budgets, exhausted workers, and roads they cannot reach? What happens when two historic storms land on the same corridor in the same month, coordinates the response, is operating under a funding lapse? The answers are buried under 3 feet of snow in Providence, under 31 inches in central Islip, under 27 inches in Newark, and under nearly 20 inches in Central Park. The bomb cyclone has peaked. The pressure is beginning to rise. But across the Northeast tonight, the lights are still out, the roads are still closed, and the season, by every measure that matters, is far from over.